Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the La Trobe University City Campus. My name is Matt Boyd. I work for University Events here at La Trobe University. It's great to see so many happy, smiley faces at this time of the morning. Thank you very much for coming along today. Today's forum, Women in Leadership, is part of the Melbourne Knowledge Week, which is the City of Melbourne initiative, and we are very proud to be a part of that initiative with City of Melbourne. We've got some fantastic speakers here. I'm not going to get too much into them. I'll let Amalia introduce the speakers a little bit later on, but first and foremost, could you please give a big round of applause for our Chancellor, Adrienne E. Clarke.
Oh, thank you, Matt. I particularly like the E part. That's really good. Well, seriously, to begin with, I'd like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people as the traditional custodians of the land upon which we're gathered. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present. And I'd like to also welcome everyone. Getting out of bed at this time of the morning, walking the dogs, feeding the children is a big effort. So thank you very much. Particularly like to welcome our speakers, Jill Gleeson, Carolyn Patton and Jeannie, and a very brave Mark Paterson into the lion's den. Thank you very much for coming. I particularly also acknowledge Miss Natalie McDonald, who is with us today. She's our Vice President of Administration at La Trobe University, and of course Professor Amalia Iorio, who's the Director of our MBA program. Now, as Mark said, the purpose of the meeting is in general to promote women in leadership. I think that the next generation of women in the workplace will look back on the enormous strides that we have made around female equality in the workplace over the last 50 years, which is, my lifetime. When I think back to where we were, there were perhaps 3 careers for a woman. You could be a teacher, a secretary, or a nurse. And in that 50 years, in my lifetime, it's been a revolution. We're part of a revolution in the way that equal participation of women at all levels of society is both accepted and supported. And the revolution is driven by more women taking on senior roles, influencing the decisions around management of the economy and indeed all aspects of our society. And these changes are having a profound effect on our society. I hope that in 5 to 10 years from now, we'll look back at the present, in which we now have an 18% gender pay gap, representation of only 7 CEOs in the ASX top 100, and I might say as a scientist, only 4% of women scientists in the learned academies. We'll be relieved that that's now history, we hope. And I think we all know the levers that we have to pull to make this inequality a thing of the past. We've got to have financial independence, flexible work arrangements, pay equity, parental leave and affordable childcare. I think we all know what has to happen. Now, one of the goals of today's meeting is to learn about leadership from 4 leaders who've really made a difference. And one of the things that we do know is that women have to help each other. If you've been successful, if you've climbed the ladder, you can't just pull it up behind you. And there are many ways in which women can support each other, and this is one of the ways that we can all support each other, by getting together and sharing experiences. But to succeed, it's very true that you've got to be smarter and harder working to get there. And I'm a great admirer of Madeleine Albright, the first female US Secretary of State. And in 1997, she said, well, there's no other way around it. There's no way of talking your way in and out of things. You just have to deliver. Now, another goal for today is to support one of the programs we have in development, which is named I Will. It means inspiring women into leadership. And this program will be focused on supporting young women, particularly with skills in the STEM disciplines. That's science, technology, engineering and maths. And we're going to focus on girls from regional Victoria, from low SES families, girls from Africa and other refugee groups. This will promote part of the revolution that I talked about that will ultimately result in both the expectation and the acceptance that women will be equal participants with men at all levels of society. As more women take on senior roles, they will have more influence on decisions relating to the management of our economy, the management of our environment, our government, and indeed our future. So with those few words, I now introduce Professor Amalia Iorio, who is certainly delivering. She's developing our MBA course, which she's now brought to be second highest rated course in Victoria by the Australian Financial Review BOSS, the highest representation of female students in MBAs in Australia. Professor Iorio.
Thank you, Adrienne, and good morning. And welcome to what I know will be a very thought-provoking morning and start to your day. Earlier this year, two female reporters, Claire Shipman and Catty Kay, published a book titled The Confidence Gap. Some of you may know of it. In 2 decades of covering American politics, they have interviewed some of the most influential women in the nation. And what surprised them was the extent to which these women suffered from self-doubt. Looking at the issue more broadly, the authors claim that a fundamental reason why women continually fail to break the glass ceiling is their acute lack of confidence. And they cite the results of a number of studies that lay testament to their claim. These include: 1. Women will apply for a promotion when they are 100% certain of the skills required for the job, while men are happy to go for the same job when they have about 60% of the skill set. And these are the results of a well-known survey of Hewlett-Packard employees. 2. Men routinely overestimate their abilities by about 30%, and this was found by a study conducted at Columbia University. 3. Men initiate salary negotiations 4 times as often as women do, and when women negotiate, they ask for 30% less than men do. 20% of adult women report that they have never negotiated. And this was found in a study by a professor of economics at Carnegie Mellon University. And finally, 4. In a scientific reasoning quiz taken by college students at Cornell, men estimated they got 7.6 answers correct out of 10, while women estimated they'd gotten 5.8 answers right. But how did they actually perform? Almost identically. Women got 7.5 and men got 7.9 answers correct. So women's lack of confidence is discussed in many contexts, not just in what I've just described to you, but in areas such as what Adrienne mentioned earlier, that lower rates of women in traditionally male-dominated fields such as science, technology, engineering and mathematics is due to a lack of confidence. The challenges faced by women returning to the workplace after time away, and an issue that is important to me in my position as MBA Director, and one that it often makes the headlines in the media, that is low numbers of women enrolling in MBA programs, which is not what we have here. But is the issue really a lack of confidence, or is it in fact something deeper? Do we need to peel back the external layer and examine what lies beneath? A recently published 3-year study on women in leadership, supported by the Institute of Coaching at Harvard University and completed by Suzette Skinner, an executive coach for senior women, found many women are in fact confident about their ability to do their own job, but what they question is their leadership ability. Having the skills is important, but how one sees oneself in the position is critical. Therefore, self-efficacy, or the belief in one's own ability to carry out a course of action in pursuit of a goal, is paramount in women's professional advancement and their leadership identity. So this concept of self-belief or self-efficacy is one that has actually emerged in a research project that I'm currently undertaking with a colleague and a friend, Professor Rosalind Russell, on factors that underpin financial decision-making in women. The general belief is that people with high levels of financial literacy make sound financial decisions. However, what we've found is that women's financial journeys are actually emotional, and that financial capabilities together with high levels of self-efficacy are important in the financial decision-making process. In turn, we have found that socialisation, especially childhood experiences, play a significant role in shaping women's views and attitudes about money, and that life events are also influential in developing self-efficacy and capabilities in dealing with financial matters. So what is the difference between confidence and self-efficacy? Although at times in the literature and in the media, these two concepts are used interchangeably, there is a difference, and understanding the difference is important. Arguably, the most renowned researcher in the area of social learning is Albert Bandura, a professor of psychology at Stanford University. Professor Bandura makes the distinction quite clear. Confidence is a nondescript term that refers to strength of belief, but does not necessarily specify what the certainty is about. I can be supremely confident that I will fail in an endeavour. Confidence is a colloquial term, a catchword. Perceived self-efficacy, on the other hand, refers to the belief in one's capabilities, that one can produce given levels of attainment. A self-efficacy assessment, therefore, includes both an affirmation of our capability level as well as the strength of belief. And according to Professor Bandura, a level of self-efficacy determines whether coping behaviour will be initiated, how much energy will be expended, and how long it will be sustained in the face of obstacles and aversive experiences. Put simply, people with strong sense of self-efficacy see difficult tasks as challenges to be mastered rather than threats to be avoided. Moreover, Bandura identifies 4 principal sources of information from which self-efficacy is derived and developed. First, and most importantly, performance accomplishments, or the experience of mastery, where performing a task successfully strengthens our sense of self-efficacy, and the successes don't have to be big. Second, vicarious experience, that is, observing others who are similar to us succeed. If someone else can do it, I can do it. Third, verbal persuasion, encouragement by others, constructive feedback, coaching. And fourth, an emotional or psychological response to situations and our perception or interpretation of those feelings. For example, do we use feelings of anxiety to enhance our performance, or do we allow them to debilitate us? Further, while the nature and scope of self-efficacy undergo changes through the course of life, as we found in our study of factors that influence financial decision-making in women, our sense of self-efficacy stems from childhood experiences and our relationships while growing up. For example, in my case, I know without a doubt that my relationship with my father has been a key factor in the development of my self-efficacy. Unsurprisingly, a strong sense of self-efficacy is often associated with elite athletes. It's what separates those who achieve the highest level from those who do not. And interestingly, I was chatting to a male colleague about this a few days ago. And he said to me, well, yes, well, as a rugby coach, I talk about self-efficacy to my players all the time. But he wasn't talking about professional rugby team. He was talking about a team of schoolboys. So, ladies, is it time that we start talking about self-efficacy rather than confidence? Given Professor Bandura's framework, what can we do to strengthen our sense of self-efficacy? And as Adrienne said, how can we help the girls and the women around us to believe that their capabilities are such that they are able to successfully achieve their goals? So today I'm joined by a panel of industry experts. And to my left, we have Jill Gleeson. Jill is a proud alumna of the Trobe MBA, having graduated in 2012 and is currently the CEO of Waverley Private Hospital, a position she's held since January 2011. Beginning her professional life as a nurse, Jill has developed her career taking a number of senior leadership roles in the health sector, from Director of Clinical Services at several hospitals to CEO of Lineker Private Hospital in Hampton, Victoria, from 2008 to 2012, to her current position at Waverley Private. And sitting next to Jill, we have Caroline Patton. Caroline is the founder and director of Accutech. As a mother of 3 and with the support of her husband, Caroline has built the Accutech business over an 11-year period, with a focus on helping to reshape other businesses, enabling them to be more sustainable. Caroline has consulted at senior levels in multinational companies and has diverse experience across a variety of industries, including management consulting, finance, banking, insurance, superannuation, airline, petroleum, retail, logistics and telecommunications. Caroline is passionate about delivering quality outcomes and providing people with a positive experience when it comes to change and transformational programs. Mark Paterson. Mark is a consultant. His current role is Principal of Curry Communications, a storyteller and a dreamer who assists organisations to find their voice, be heard, and engage with those people who matter the most to them. The eldest son of corgi dog breeders, a father of 3, golfer, gardener, and tennis player, and occasional scuba diver. You'll need all those skills today. Mark would like to change the world for better. Mark provides senior counsel about strategic positioning, corporate reputation, communications planning, stakeholder engagement and issues management to executives in private and public sector organisations operating in the Asia-Pacific region. And next to Mark is Anne Junier. Anne's current position is Oceania Leader of Human Capital for EY, which has approximately 300 people. In addition, Anne advises many global companies on expatriate tax management. Anne has been a human capital partner for 12 years and has worked with many companies on the worldwide review of the terms and conditions of expatriate transfers and cross-border tax planning. Anne is the global engagement partner for Orica, who has assignees in 45 countries where EY is responsible for the delivery of expatriate tax, assignment services and immigration for all of Orica's assignees. So welcome, panel members. And I'll start with Jill. Jill, now you have been the CEO of 2 hospitals, 2 private hospitals, large organisations. And I'm sure that there is self-efficacy and self-belief has had a huge role in you achieving both of those positions. So I'll just hand over to you.
Thank you very much.
And
thank you, Amalia.
You can tell us about your journey.
Okay. Well, thanks, Amalia. Today, I've actually been asked to talk to you about my leadership journey. And to be honest with you, I hate talking about myself. So my leadership challenge today is actually doing something that I'm not completely comfortable with and learning to be comfortable with it. So over the next 5 minutes, I'm going to share parts of my journey with you. I'll link my journeys to some leadership traits, and I hope to inspire you to want to achieve in your leadership journey as well. Just to add some context about myself, I grew up here in Melbourne in a traditional household. My mum was a primary school teacher and my dad was an administration clerk. I have an older brother and I have a younger sister, so I'm also the middle child. And from a very young age, I have always believed I could do it. No matter what it was, I could do it. And particularly if someone said to me, "You can't do that," I would say, "Watch me." I've always had an adventurous spirit as well. And one might say I'm a bit of a risk taker. I've skydived, and I skydived on my own, not tandem. I learned to scuba dive, I've abseiled, I've rock climbed, I've been caving, I swam with sharks, I've done Kokoda. I would give anything a go. And the more anxiety I had about something, the more I actually wanted to do it. I've always had the same application of this philosophy in my workplace. If there was something that needed to be done, I always put up my hand, and particularly when I didn't even know what I was putting my hand up for. And leadership is just that. It's feeling the fear of something and jumping in and giving it a go anyway. And if you don't do so well the first time around, don't panic about it. Just get up and do it again until you master it. And I don't need to tell anyone in this room that when you do actually succeed and when you do master something, the feeling you have is absolutely awesome. There is no other option in your leadership journey but a self-belief that if not at first, but eventually you will succeed. I began my career as an enrolled nurse in a nursing home, and I absolutely loved what I did. I loved looking after the residents, and I know to this day that I made a difference to their lives. I remember feeling really, really proud and successful even back then. Did I know I had leadership traits back then? Did I have a career plan? Did I plan to be a CEO of a hospital? Absolutely not. I did not have a plan and I had no idea what I was going to do. But what I did know, that I now attribute to my success, is that I was passionate about something. And I was passionate about making a difference to other people's lives. And in my nursing career, I was privileged to be able to do that every single day. I transitioned from an enrolled nurse to a registered nurse, and I chose oncology nursing, which is cancer nursing, as my career path. And unknowingly at the time, this was going to have a profound impact on my leadership journey, particularly for the time that I spent at the Royal Children's Hospital. A cancer diagnosis brings out the rawest emotions of people, and as a nurse, I dealt with this every day. Oncology nursing taught me about the pain of grief, the pain of sadness and suffering, but more importantly, it taught me how to deal with this pain and how to turn this pain into something positive and often reflective. It taught me resilience over and over again. I worked in the oncology field for over 10 years, and one of my favourite stories is about a man in his 50s who was a senior corporate lawyer at the time. He'd been having his treatment for his bowel cancer, and he was actually on the road to a full recovery. He was the first patient of many who told me how grateful he was for having been diagnosed with cancer. What that taught me, as did many other patients, is that you'll be a better person and therefore a better leader if you can always look on the bright side of life. And leaders do this. The glass is always half full. It is sometimes half empty. I say rarely half empty because you know what? There are some days where we feel flat too. The strategy that I use when I feel like this, as I deliberately begin to fill my glass up again, is that I stand tall, I smile, and I interact with people. I consciously interact with others using positive body language and positive words. I simply fake it till I make it. And leadership is about recovery from those tough times, giving you a sense of resilience along the way, because there will be tough times. Now, I naturally progressed through my nursing career from a registered nurse to managing departments, and I often received great feedback. It felt natural to me, and it was actually quite easy. However, let's fast forward to my first role in the executive environment as a director of nursing. I was only 32 years old. Wow, it was a baptism by fire. I thought I knew it all, but you know what? There was so much more for me to learn. This was a time when leadership skills became even more important to me, and I realised that my natural ability to lead people actually became unstuck. All the things that I had applied with a small team of maybe 30 or 40 people did not necessarily apply to this larger organisational structure where I was suddenly responsible for more than 150 people. My world was different. Now, if I was going to survive in this environment, I had to find ways to succeed. Failing at this role simply was not an option in my mind. So what did I do? I looked for constant feedback and I sought mentors. And I learned through the feedback process not to argue when someone gives you feedback that you don't like, not to debate the feedback, and not to try to defend yourself when they're providing you that feedback. Feedback should be your friend. This was an exciting time in my leadership journey, and let me tell you, boy did I get it wrong at times. But I had mentors who were able to guide me along the way. I certainly learned a lot, and I grew as a person, and I grew as a leader. And the reason I'm now a CEO is because my passion for patient care, which I've had all my life, began to reach beyond the clinical safety and governance arena, stretching into the business model of the healthcare costs and research. And it was the feedback from other colleagues and other executives in the company I work for today who said to me, "You should be a CEO." So it wasn't something that I deliberately did, but when someone put it to me, I actually said, "Do you know what? I think I could do that." So I am who I am because of my life's journey, and I wouldn't change my life for the world. And my final message to you today is to be the glass half full. Stand tall, be proud, embrace the challenges and the fears along the way. And as you go, have some fun. Good luck.
Yes, so the mastery of success and positive feedback, constructive feedback, these are all the things that Albert Bandura talks about in his framework. So now we have Caroline Patton. As you've heard, Caroline is the founder and director of Accutech. I know Caroline. She's on our MBA advisory board, and I know something of her journey. You're very self-motivated, Caroline. You are very self-disciplined. And I'm guessing that being the founder of a company and seeing it grow and come to fruition, as you have, must not have been easy every day of the week. So I'm sure self-efficacy and self-belief had a strong role to play in your journey. Would you like to share?
I suppose for me, being an owner and entrepreneur, I always reflect on me as a younger girl, and I was always called the overachiever. Failure was not an option for me either, never. And I think one of the pivotal points in my life, I'd had the business for about six years, and 2 years prior to that, I was working on a business partner, and I never actually had a business partner before. But I met this woman. I thought she was a wonderful woman. She didn't have a lot of self-efficacy, but I knew that she had competencies and skills that were more than what she gave herself any credit for. And so she joined the business. And I think one of the key things for me was a lesson in being able to manage between an emotional, because self-efficacy is very an emotional thing for me, an emotional wanting to help people and wanting to bring them along on your journey versus strategic decisions. And one of my lessons were that when I came to the office one day and said to her, "Look, I just need to let you know something. I'm pregnant with my second child." And leading up to this, I was told I'd never be able to have children. So for me, it was an exciting opportunity. Oh my God, there's another child here coming along. And for her, it was a blow. "Caroline, how can you be so irresponsible? The business is actually in a pivotal point where it's about to explode. We'd just taken on a very large client for a number of years of work, and it meant that she would have to do it all on her own, and she was not ready for that. She emotionally was not strong enough to do that. But then the whole concept of me leaving her, she felt as though I was going to abandon her. But the opposite occurred. She actually abandoned me. She abandoned the business, and it was really horrific. I felt like I'd been ripped apart. And I think this whole concept of being able to pick yourself up at that time, I actually thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? So I spoke to a few people that I trusted, and they said to me, Caroline, believe in yourself. You've always believed in yourself. You can do this. You can pull it off. And it's because of your confidence and your tenacity and your capability, you can pull this off, and you could pull anything off. And so for me, it was like, oh my God, yes, I can. And so that moment of self-doubt, and then the realization of, yes, I do believe in myself. I believe in my capability. I believe in the people that I have working for me as well. I can actually do this. And so I went through a separation. I'd never been through a separation. I said to my husband, oh, I feel like I've just been divorced. And he said, you'll be okay, don't worry, we can get through this. And as Amalia had said to me, said in my introduction, my husband was one of my key strengths in me being able to do what I do, and me having the confidence in myself to do and to overcome adversity. So I had to, for the first time, go to see a bank and ask them for money so I could buy her out, something that I'd never done before. So I went to a bank and I said to them, hey, I need a couple of $100,000. And I was lucky enough that I actually met a wonderful business banker who was a woman as well, who I gave her a plan, and we were talking to Jill earlier. I had plans for everything. So for me to be able to overcome this, I had a plan, strategy, what am I going to do? How am I going to maneuver through this amazing challenge that's been put in front of me? And the business banker said to me, I've never seen anybody so prepared. I had figures, I had statistics, I had clients, I had staff who were going to back what we were going to do from a business perspective. And I said, we're going to springboard this business. I'm not going to allow for this challenge to actually stop me. Watch out, because I'm now going to make this the biggest and the best business that anybody could ever be in. And that's pretty much what I did. So I had 2 days off when I did have my baby. So I was on conference calls out at the Francis Perry House to London, because my clients were over in London and I couldn't travel because I had the baby. And I was saying to them, this is what we're doing, and I'm on the phone to India and to Israel, and everybody's saying, Caroline, when's this baby due? I've actually just had it. And they've said to me, what are you doing on the phone? I said, we've got some really important key dates that we have to actually get to, and it's really important to me to make sure that we're doing this. And the baby's only 2 days old. It's sleeping. It can't do much more than that. I did take some time off after the project went live. And these clients, I must say, have supported the business for many years to come. And they believed in me. They believed in the vision. They believed in the values that we had. The staff also believed in our values. They believed in themselves because they could see the adversity that I was able to actually overcome, and that contagious passion and belief in anything is possible if you actually put your mind to it. It's going to be hard work. It's not easy. It's not a walk in the park. But if you're willing to put effort in, you're willing to back yourself, and you're willing to actually put yourself out there to try something new and to learn, well then, why not? And I suppose one of the key things that I keep thinking of is, at first I felt beaten and I thought, oh, crushed, and I didn't believe in myself. But the ability to turn something around and actually make it an amazing outcome is something that I know that my self-belief means that my self-belief and my staff self-belief is there, and that's what we do.
Thank you.
That's okay.
So, two very different stories, but the messages are the same. And I think that that message of self-belief and self-efficacy and believing that you can do it, even in times of trouble and tough times, is very strong and powerful. Mark, on the iPhone. Oh, your notes. That's wonderful. Mark, now you said, I said in your bio that one of the things you're really passionate about is getting organisations to find their voice and to connect and engage with the people that they want to connect with. And sometimes women find it very difficult to find their voices in organisations, and I just wonder whether you can perhaps you have some ideas about how or what organisations are actually doing to assist women to find their voice and to find that belief in themselves, seeing that you've had such wide experience.
That's kind of you, Amalia. Can everyone hear me? Yeah. I'm principal of a business here in Melbourne, and 75% of the leadership positions are occupied by women. So that's sort of a little bit of context around it. So we work in strategic communications, so that introduces us to areas like culture management. And in culture we talk about things like signs, symbols and behaviours. They're like the code, if you like, of the way a business operates. So for women or for minority groups to find their voice, you need to have signs, symbols, behaviours, rituals need to be part of the structures, the functions and processes of an organisation. For women or for anyone in an organisation to have a voice, they need to be asked a question. It's that simple. So you need to have forums, times in the schedule where women, men, ethnicity, members of those groups, whether they're Indigenous or otherwise, are asked questions. That's the only way you get a voice. Women generally tend to be better listeners than men. So, in a lot of businesses, I don't think share of voice is really, from women versus men or from leadership, down, isn't thought about all that often. So it's a culture. That's how you deal with it with culture. I hope that makes sense. And that can be a weekly meeting in the morning, in a tea room, in the boardroom, wherever, but you need those places to go and talk and listen. That's how it happens. So my business partner, Susan, when she heard that I got an invitation to come to do this, which seemed like a good idea at the time, she said, so often I'm the token female. It's nice to see that you're going to be the token male. And we talked about questions. So, I have a female business partner. I have, a de facto relationship with a female. I mentor women, and I have employees who are women. So there's 4 groups there, and I raised the question about self-belief and confidence and the gap, whether it's a confidence gap and the number of positions and CEOs is 7 out of 100 in the top Australian companies. And I got different views. There is no one answer. So women who were empowered, like my business partner, said there is no confidence gap, and self-belief has nothing to do with the percentage of women occupying leadership positions in Australian business. And any such notion is patronising. That was one perspective. So then I spoke to one of our members of our team, our staff, and she said, absolutely damn right it's an issue. And these two people work together. They collaborate on projects. And she said, because there are things holding the number of women back from leadership positions, and those things actually do affect your confidence, your self-belief, your self-efficacy. You know, it's all these sort of messages that you get in business and the way business does. And I'll touch on that very briefly in a minute. But she says it does affect your confidence. It's disempowering. Yeah. So quite clearly, one lady there, one of my colleagues, is much more empowered and confident, and whether that's relating to how she was nurtured as a child and mentored as a profession. And then there's someone sort of halfway up the ladder, if you like, has a completely different view. And my employee colleague, and she told me about it, she and my business partner walked into a meeting with a client, and they've had this client for 3 or 4 years, and every time they walk into a meeting every 3 to 4 months, they get announced as the curry ladies, right? But it's interesting, isn't it, that one part of that pair doesn't think self-belief or is a problem where the other one does, and the other one does think that it's influenced by the rituals, the customs, the norms, the languages that we use in business. So a lady that I mentor, an executive at NAB, she talked about language, and when we talk about signs, symbols, behaviours, we talk about messaging, words that are both spoken and unspoken. But in a spoken sense, she said, we use the sporting language. We talk about being match fit, home runs, straight bats, all in our corporate speak and our business planning. And straight away, that sends signals about what's acceptable. And they're not, if you were to say they're gender-based terms, you'd say they're more familiar with male sporting codes, for example. So that's just one element of the type of institute that contributes to the type of institutions which hold women back, and in some part have an impact on some of their self-belief and self-efficacy. It happens. We see it all the time. Like I can tell you, in the last month, like Microsoft CEO, who among you heard his comments about asking for a pay rise? For whether if women are paid 26 or 24% less than men in the IT sector, so that's a big debate going on in America at the moment. And he was saying, in a conference with women, surrounded by women, he said, I think that women shouldn't be too forthright about asking for a pay rise, even though men are asking for 40% more than what they're capable of delivering. He said women should leave that to karma, and it will come around. Okay? So anyway, he backtracked and apologised and all that sort of stuff. And then a colleague of mine recently was a part of a merger, and she's a director of this business, and she was offered 15% less than the male directors in that merger. Stuff's going on all the time, So I think it's those sort of signs, symbols, actions, behaviours which are very much influencing the proportion of women that are in leadership positions, and I think in part that does affect the confidence of some but not all women. Yeah. So my takeaway, and I'm more interested to hear what you would like to know, but Telstra Business Women Awards was on last week. There was a wonderful quote that came out of that, and I think about that a bit. So a takeaway message would be that surround yourself with people who believe in you. That's really, really important. I've got a daughter, and I think how she succeeds in life, by whatever definition that is, will be shaped very much by how she's nurtured by her mother and father and her stepmother. So surround yourself with people who believe in you, who are honest with you, and who care about you. Right? And it doesn't matter whether it's your first job or it's whether you're the CEO, it should be those same sort of principles. Yeah. So that would be my parting message, and if you can do that, then you will get the support, self-belief, mentoring, and success that you seek.
Thank you. It's very interesting as the MBA director here at La Trobe, and I was the MBA director at another university prior to joining La Trobe in the beginning of 2013, and I'm a finance academic, so I've actually worked in a very, very, very male-dominated environment for the last 15 or so years. But being the MBA director here at La Trobe, I have witnessed, more so than in my previous position, I've witnessed women either being promoted or getting a new job within about 6 to 12 months of starting the MBA here at La Trobe. And I put that down to self-belief and an increase in their abilities, or believe that they are more capable than they were before they joined the MBA. And thinking about this and reflecting on it, our first subject is titled Personal and Professional Skills Development. And what we talk about and what we focus on in that subject is leadership. And we have a number of guest speakers who come in. We also get our students to do group presentations and so forth. And I think starting an MBA in that particular way, where we talk about self-awareness, we talk about team building, we talk about leadership skills. There are lots of examples of great leaders that we present, gives our students, but in particular, I think our women, an increased sense of self-efficacy, that they are capable of doing things that possibly they didn't think they were capable of doing prior to starting the MBA. And it's, as I said, I'm absolutely astounded. I know my students very well, and in particular the female students, and often, and there's one sitting right here that I can see, and she's an example of this, that it isn't far down the track of starting the MBA that they've either been promoted, they've been offered a new job, and they've got a pay rise as well. So, I think there's a lot to be said for what you were saying earlier, sharing forums, and also what Jill and Caroline was saying around putting yourself in positions where perhaps you have to test yourself, and once you've succeeded, that really promotes your sense of self-efficacy. So Anne, you've been a partner at a very large global firm for over a decade now, so I'm sure that journey was quite an interesting journey, and now you travel to overseas. You're international traveller, I'm sure. How many people do you think you interact with on an annual basis?
Thousands, but any one day I can talk to a number of different people in different countries.
So in terms of your journey,
Yep.
what role did self-efficacy play in that? And what do you see? I'm sure out of all those thousands of people, there must be a large percentage of women. What do you see, perhaps even across cultures, in terms of self-efficacy in women?
Before getting into my story, I think we've got a long way to go in the Australian culture. So unfortunately, I see the Australian culture not conducive to women in leadership as much as I see some of the other cultures, which is unfortunate, but hopefully we're on the right track because I think some of the other cultures are a long way ahead than ours, unfortunately. So,
can you identify what particular cultures?
The US are a long way ahead. A lot of the Scandinavian countries are a long way ahead, whether that's childcare, whether that's society. But we've got probably Scandinavia is where you see most women in leadership. Even Asia, there's a lot more women in finance in Asia.
Yes.
And a lot of that's attributable to great childcare in Asia. So very different, and very different reasons for different countries.
So your
my story. So I've been a partner at Ernst & Young for 14 years. I work 4 days a week, and I've got 2 teenage daughters, which are interesting and a whole nother topic. But great kids. I would like to say that I had a very clear ambition of what I wanted to be, and a partner was what I always wanted to be. I'd also like to say I had great self-belief growing up, but I didn't. And I think you'll hear today very different stories, and mine's quite different again. So I was the fourth children under 5 that my parents had. So I think they were just a bit tired by the time. So what I got out of that, and I'll tell some stories today of how I'm in a very male-dominated industry. Tax partner is, there's not that many females. I've had a number of different leadership positions. So I will go through how some of the things I've learned along the way, but very different from other stories today. So when I basically went through school, and I was probably a bit bored actually. I didn't go exceptionally well. Got into university, and I found it interesting. I was challenged, and while I might not have had a lot of self-confidence, I actually had resilience, which has been what's helped me. It has allowed me to take some risks in my career. Again, not because I had a huge self-belief, which now I do know how important self-belief is, but I had to learn that self-belief, and learnt that self-belief potentially the hard way. So when I got into a company called Ernst & Young, Arthur Andersen I was with first, which is, for some of you may know, was a company that actually disintegrated. As a first-year partner in Arthur Andersen, I stood to lose my house, everything that we own. The good news is that didn't happen, but again, being resilient, not so much self-belief, is probably what got me through those days. But the lead up to partner, it was not something that I had ever set my sights on. If I was interested in what I was doing in work in that particular week, and it was mainly a week, I would stay in that role. If I wasn't interested, it was time to move on. Saying that, I've been in essentially the same job and career for 22 years, so every day is interesting. I had a great mentor, and today I think I'll talk a lot about generalisation, so I'll be careful. I found women as well as men could be equally good mentors. Support for me was the main thing. So when my probably only thing that I really wanted to was become a mum. When for a number of years, it wasn't necessarily about the career. Had a great mentor, and he said to me, "That's fine. You don't have to be partner. You can still work. You can still work here for as long as you like. But as long as you realise you'll probably be working for X if you stay here." That was the most horrific 2 minutes of my life. It was like, I think I'm going to be a partner then. I don't want to work in. Because I realised at that time that I was smarter, more effective, and I just could not work for that person. So a different motivation. I'm not a competitive person. It wasn't about being competitive, but it was like, what am I thinking? Of course I can do that. Eventually made partner at 34, had 2 children under 2, and as I said, the firm fell down around me within a year of making partner, which was an interesting test of resilience. About 7 years later, I continued to work part-time through my partnership. I was offered a role to take over the Melbourne leadership of the tax practice, which was about 25 generally male partners, a few females, and to look after a division of 300 people. Of course, my reaction was, "You've got to be kidding, I can't do that. I don't want to do that anyway. I've got too many other things I want to do." So I was talked into doing the role, and it was a great move. It was the best move from a career perspective I could have done. But a lot of the male partners had never reported into a female before, and that was a real challenge for them, and it was most certainly a challenge for me. So whenever we do personality testing with the group of partners, if 90% of the male partners were in one group, I was generally in the absolute opposite. Which was always a plus, because I could think differently, and we could think differently, and I was a completely different leader to probably the other males that have come before me. Was I more effective? Maybe not. Was I any better or worse? Just different. I was a different leader, and I brought different things to the partnership. So after 5 years of doing that role, I'm in a separate role now, which is in the human capital space, which is quite female orientated. So I've gone from lots of males to lots of females. Some of the things I've learnt along the way is I'm on the tax executive for Ernst & Young, which is a group of partners in similar positions. There's only 2 females on that executive. And quite often what I found is that I'd be talking a different language to the males. I would have made the point half an hour ago and someone else would have, a male generally, would have made the point, and I'd be looking at the other female in the room going, I just said that. and she'd be nodding at me going, I know. And I realised I had to condense what I was saying. I had to, unfortunately, if I wanted to get results, change the way I was talking to some of my males. Instead of giving 90% of the information, I had to give 50% of the information and direct my conversations just in a different way. In closing, at the beginning, Madeleine Albright was quoted, and she's one of my favourite authors and people. One of the things you'll often hear in Women in Leadership speeches is the quote that she gave, and it's still one of my favourites, which is, there should be a special place in hell for women who don't support other women. Because as women, if we say something that is to other women, sometimes the volume of how we say it, not literally, but can have double the impact. So if we're told we can't do it, if we're told that person, she's a bit male orientated, she's a bit, it multiplies. I think we all owe it to other females to continue support. I've had great male support, but I have fantastic female support from my female partners, and I'm sure without either I wouldn't be in the leadership positions I'm in today. So thank you.
I would agree with that. I think in my position, having been in a male-dominated environment for a long time, I've had some fantastic male mentors, and I've also had some fantastic female mentors, and they continue to be my friends, in fact, after I've left the particular workplaces. All right, so now it's your turn. Let's open the floor for questions. We're all available to answer your questions. We have Kendall there with the microphone, so if you'd just like to put up your hand, and Kendall will come across with the mic. Silence.
Questions?
Yes, Sue.
Thanks, Amelia. Thank you, everybody on the panel. Is that on? Is that right?
Yes.
Yep. Just a really interesting point at the end that you made about women supporting other women, because, you know, there's an incident, one of my son's girlfriends, she found that she had to leave a firm because she went in there excited that she had a female boss, but then she found that the female boss was more interested in herself getting on rather than supporting, and it was a construction industry, so it was very male dominated. So unfortunately she left, and she's got another job which is still in male dominated, but she's found that she's actually got a male boss now who is much more nurturing. So it's an interesting thing. Sometimes you can win, sometimes you can lose. But I think that, I'm going to embarrass Natalie here. Natalie's my boss, but one of the reasons that it's so good working with Natalie is that everything's possible. It is really that nurturing. And the other interesting thing I thought about, you're talking about volume. Mark, I've known Mark for many, many years, and I can waffle on. But condensing that to try and get the point across to, particularly in a male-dominated area, is really, really important. I totally agree with what you said there, because we can be half an hour ahead than the rest of the conversation, but you have to figure out how to get your point across much more succinctly.
I think there's no doubt some females in business, like some males in business, can be caustic, and you know, I would probably prefer to take on a caustic male than a caustic female. But all I can say is I've been privileged, not all females, but 9 out of 10 females, and it's probably one of the questions I get asked the most. But the support I get from other females, whether you're talking about what school age to send them, what you know, how annoying your husband is that particular day, whatever it might be, the support I've got from females 9 out of 10 times has been phenomenal. That 1 out of 10 has been shocking.
Mark, I really liked the idea you were talking about with signs and symbols and that sort of being a catalyst to change culture. Do you have any recommendations for how to make those changes when you do have females in leadership positions that are perhaps that difficult personality that are interested in themselves?
Yeah. So my advice would be that with any culture change, it has to start with the leadership team. So it's not something that, I don't believe you can start from the bottom. So there has to be a collective will of, if not the board, then the senior executive to bring about those type of interventions, changes, to create the type of environment which is fairer and more effective. It's that simple. So if you're stuck at a firm or a place that isn't supporting your belief in yourself, being honest with you and caring about you, leave. It's that simple. And it's just not worth the agony. And it's not just with women, it's with men. I mean, I left a corporate, I buried myself in there, and I was surrounded by men and women who had varying levels of self-belief. It's not gender specific. So in my situation, I worked with a business partner, an older male, and we worked together for 10 years, and he always earned more money than I did. And I was managing director and he was principal going out. And I just thought that that was the right thing to do. I came from a background in society. When I took on a woman as a business partner, after 2 years she said, "I'm worth as much to this business as you are." And she was right. So she wasn't backward in coming forward to ask the question, I was. So in all these things, it's a mistake to generalise or to think about stereotypes, in terms of trying to address these problems. Individual solutions, individual teams, those sort of things like that. I hope that helps.
I think the key message is also when you find yourself sitting in a position that you don't feel empowered to make a change, and I guess like Mark says, it's up to the leadership team to create the change. Don't stay there. It's toxic for you, and not only in your own working life, but it can be then toxic in your personal life, and it will change your leadership journey. So my message is also take control, be in control. If it's not working, don't join them in the toxic environment. Don't try and debate, don't try and argue, because it doesn't actually help you grow as a person or grow as a leader. So I would certainly say the same thing. Find a new job. If you're really good at what you do and you're passionate about something, you will find a new job and you'll find people who will work with you. Don't stay there. It's not good for you at all. Yeah.
I just have a question to the panellists. What do you think the differences are between the person who progresses to an executive position and those individuals who just stay in the same lower level position for like 10 years, 20 years? Do you think there's any character differences between the two individuals?
I'll give this one a go. I've got 70% of my workforce are women, and I've got a wonderful woman who works for me, and she is a senior manager, but that's what she wants. She is amazing at what she does. How she nurtures the team, men and women alike, how she can get them to do amazing things, how she's able to empower them and make them feel part of the journey is amazing. She has no aspiration to becoming an executive. And you know what, frankly, if she does such an amazing job of what she does and she loves it and she feels valued, well then why does she need to think that she has to do that senior role or an executive role when she's going to then have to compromise some of the other things that are important to her, which is family. So I don't push people to take on those other roles. I say be happy with what you're doing. If you're aspiring to do executive roles, go for it because you can do it. But if you're happy in what you're doing and the part that you play in the bigger picture, well, that's just as important.
Everyone has a leadership role, no matter what you do, which position you sit in. You are a leader and you have capacity to be a leader. You don't have to be a CEO of a hospital. You don't have to be an entrepreneur. You can choose your own journey in life and choose your own journey in your career. And I think I agree with Caroline, is that I've got some fantastic leaders in my organisation. And a lot of them are mums. I'm giving you a tip. I love employing mums. They just are so much more organised because they know at 3 o'clock they've got to go because they've got to go and get the kids and do all these other jobs or go into their second job. They often tell me, I'm going home to my second job now. But, you know, it's really about what you want to do. You don't have to be a CEO. You don't have to be, you know, a manager of a department. You might choose to not even have direct reports but be damn good at what you do. That is leadership in itself. So, yeah, leadership for us as women and how we can encourage each other is to encourage each other to be good at what we do. And if you can find a passion, and I guess that's where my journey began, and my journey still is I am passionate about healthcare. So try and work out what your passion is and be comfortable wherever you are. Just because you're not a CEO doesn't mean you're not good at what you do.
A lot of people, and one of the questions I get asked, you don't have to pick up the Sunday paper, can you have it all as an executive? And maybe you can't have absolutely everything all the time, but you can have a lot of everything. A family and a career are not mutually exclusive. So, or whatever she might have elderly parents, she just might not want to as long as she knows that she can have a bit of everything. And we've all got 24 hours in a day, but family and career aren't mutually exclusive. She just might be happy doing her role. And as long as she's making that choice informed that it doesn't have to be because she's got to give up something else, then that's her decision.
Family and career is exhausting. I've been a primary carer and what have you. And, I'm a guy, so I come from that perspective. But I just, man, why do you want... It's so hard. Do you know what I mean? Like, from that perspective, I don't know what... I'm not sure what the attraction about it all is. If I had my time again as a father, I would have taken 6 weeks off after Amelia was born, So, we ask a lot of ourselves. And with one of the questions, Amalia, was that in the brief that we got was, how do you identify or deal with people in the workplace, women in the workplace around self-belief? Well, I asked Susan, my business partner, about that. And she said, it doesn't matter whether they're a male or female. You observe individuals and treat them as individuals. I've got a guy in our business. He's so creatively intelligent. He's amazing. He could do amazing things, but he doesn't have the self-confidence or desire to be anything other than hold his station in life. And he's comfortable there. So for me, I think that if you find a place in executive or non-executive, casual, permanent work that you're comfortable with, that's the most important thing in terms of being happy and finding success in your working life.
I'd like to ask the panel about their opinion on male ambassadors for change. So I work for Metro Trains, which is obviously a very male-dominated environment. And so whilst we can have the most confident women who are pushing themselves forward, if we don't have those men that have that belief in the value of diversity, how can we, positively affect change? So I'd just like to hear from the panel, their thoughts on how we bring men along on the journey as well for this, I suppose.
So as a male, can I go first? Yeah. You need men. Yep. You need those ambassadors, right? People a bit like me, but better than me. Okay. And the place you start is go and look at their mothers. All right. So my mother is a strong, free-willed, independent, proud, all those sort of things. And I grew up thinking that's what women are like. So go and find men in business, and they're already around there, who have mothers like that, and they're the ones to recruit as your male ambassadors and have part of the conversation.
Can I just add to that? I have a 24-year-old son and a 19-year-old daughter, and you know, it's been long hours, PhD, you know, and he has seen me. He was 2 when I started academia as a sessional, and he's seen me work really hard and been on the journey with me, if you like. And when he started second year uni, he said, he called me up one night and I was still in the office, it was 7 o'clock. He said, "Mum, what do you want for dinner? Because I'm starting it." And my husband would never call me to say, "What would you like for dinner?" Because he says he can't cook. So, but my son started cooking when he was 18, simply to relieve me of that duty. And I think you're absolutely right. We have a responsibility not just to our daughters but also to our sons, and the way that we nurture them so that they do make a difference as they grow up and enter the workforce and you know, partner and whatever. So I have, and he's still cooking, which is great. Last night he made great salmon. Any more questions?
Sorry, if you want a male executive on board too, the other good thing to look at is their daughters. So quite often with execs whose daughters are just finishing uni, and they can see that why should they change completely, not all of them, completely change their view on that's not fair, and you can put them into their daughter's eyes. That will be a different. If you think their daughter's not going to get the same opportunities, it's amazing how quickly they get on the diversity bandwagon.
There was a journalist who spoke, I was watching Sunrise the other morning, and she's written a book, and I can't think of her name right now, someone might know it, and the book she's written is Every Woman Needs a Wife. Yes. Don't need to, who was, I can't remember who it was. Who was it?
Annabelle Crabb.
There you go. The Wife Drought. Oh, well, it's a new book. She's just come out. And I think that's really pertinent. And she talked about it actually being a society change. We've come a long way for women in leadership in the workforce. But the way she flipped the coin was to say, but it's our home life. So we're working really hard as women. But it's when, I've got to think, you know, mum's not well, I've got to get over there and make sure I clean her house for her. I've got to do, you know, the washing, the cooking, etc. for her. So not only am I working, but I'm thinking of that. I've got to get home because I know, you know, my son's basketball's at 6 o'clock. I've got to fit that in. I've still got to do the shopping. And that's something that she said in society, that's how women think, because we're constantly on the ball trying to do all those other duties. And she actually made a really good point. She said she feels that men are actually missing out on some of the joys that we've had in our lives. And that's really where the society may go. I've not read her book, but I'm interested to read her book about it. And I thought that was actually a really good point, is that society for men, and Mark might want to comment on this, almost hasn't allowed men to do all of those things for whatever reason. And that's the new journey that we need to embrace in life, is to make sure that men also can work part-time, that men can leave, you know, work at 3 o'clock. I know I've got a lot of women who, you know, might take, you know, from 10 till 12 off work because they're doing something at the school with the kids. So it's about, I see my role is making sure that I allow men to do that and encourage the men in my workforce to do the same and to play a bigger part in their family life as well. So it was a really interesting thing to watch. So
We have time for one more question.
Just one more. I'm interested in being prepared to fail and building resilience. Have you got any tips around that?
I'm happy to start with that because one thing I learned early on is as a tax professional, I'm actually not going to kill anyone. No one's going to die if I fail. Maybe unlike you. And then it was, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? So, and you know, that doesn't seem a positive thought process as opposed to what great, you know, things I can do. But in developing your resilience, you think, well, if I give this a shot, what's the worst thing that can happen? Then you can flip it over to a more positive mindset of, well, I'm going to give that a go, as opposed to what's the downside of doing something. So it's a build. So, and failing, it's where I've learnt the most. The things that you learn most in life is when you fail. So to me, a failure is not a negative, it's a learning experience.
I think when I was younger, I used to think that failure was no option. But I've learnt, as Anne was suggesting, that failure is about learning. It's about stretching yourself, taking yourself out of your comfort zone and being able to realise that additional competency or confidence or self-belief that anything is possible. So by having some failures, and you have to have failures along the way to actually embrace them and learn from them, but try not to make them again. That was my motto. But it's important to try things and give it a go and not be afraid of what impact that may have, because, you know, I don't want to be foolish and I don't want people to think that I'm, you know, not capable. Give it a go and you'll realise quite quickly that the failure, challenge or fear goes away very, very quickly.
And the other thing to remember, certainly my message in relation to when you get things wrong, one of the most powerful things that you can do is actually apologise. Is to, you know what, gee, I got that wrong and I'm really sorry. So I actually even relate what you do in your own personal life. You know, your partner, sometimes he doesn't do things right. But, you know, sometimes you're like, oh, gee, I got that wrong, didn't I? But you do the same in your work life. When you get it wrong, to actually say to someone, do you know what, I'm really sorry about that interaction I had with you, or I'm sorry I interrupted you. I'm sorry I didn't give you the time to listen. That is really powerful. Sorry, am I doing that? Probably am. And I think that's important. So whilst that's something that you could use the word failure, I wouldn't use the word as failure. I'd use it as a lesson in life, that I recognise that something didn't go quite right in that interaction I had with someone. Because I guess a lot of what you do in leadership is about our interaction with each other. And what you really do is you reflect on that interaction. And if you come up with ooh, that wasn't so good, going back to the person, checking with the person to say, are you okay? I'm sorry that it happened. When things also, you know, don't go so well and you're feeling really flat, I give myself a time frame to feel flat. So sometimes I say, you know what, I feel crap at the moment. You know, I feel like the world is my burden. And I'll allow myself, and I might say, righty, I've got 2 hours, I'm going to feel like this. I'm just going to journey with this right now. And you allow that time frame, and then you go, right, oh, my 2 hours is up. And like I said in my speech, you actually, even though you don't feel like it, you get up, you hold yourself high, and you talk in a positive way. And I truly believe that when you've had something that not go so right, you fake it till you make it, and you know what, you feel better eventually. And that little issue that you had, you turn it around and you feel positive about it, and don't think of it as a negative, but as a learning and an opportunity.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I'd like to call Adrienne now to thank our guests and panel speakers. So,
Well, I think it's been a wonderful, yes, a wonderful session, and so many amazing insights into the variety of journeys that people have had, and so much wisdom, and so much self-revealing. I think we've all had wonderful experiences. When I think about it and think back, I would never have experienced a forum like this 50 years ago when I was a young scientist, getting into actually managing people. We just did it as best we could, and as I think you said, Carolyn, being one of a number of children gives you a bit of resilience, and I was one of 5, the only girl, so that gave me a bit of... I learned about alliances very early. They were constantly being made and broken and reformed and negotiated. So I think that was something that really set me on a good path. But we would never have had a forum like this where we could share experiences. There were so few women who were moving up the ranks then, and I just look at this and think, yes, we are part of a revolution, and we've come a long way in my professional lifetime from almost a zero base, I'd say, to something that's very substantial and very empowering, I think, to see women helping women in this way. So thank you very much to our panellists for revealing all in such a personal way. It's not an easy thing to do. But thank you very much. I'm sure everyone has learned a lot from the morning, and it was worth getting out of bed for. So would you join with me in thanking our panel again?